I was knee-deep in mud, one hand gripping the shovel, the other resting on my hip, when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks echoed off the metal of my front gate like gunshots through the open Texas air. I wiped sweat from my brow and looked up. There she was, Madeline Crane, the HOA president, in her crisp white blouse and navy pantsuit, like she just walked off the set of Desperate Housewives. Her lips were drawn so tight it looked like she hadn't smiled in years. Behind her stood 2 men in matching windbreakers and clipboards. They didn't belong out here, not in this heat, not on a ranch. They belonged in air-conditioned boardrooms, sipping overpriced coffee while judging folks like me. "We need to talk about the dog," Madeline said, her voice sharp enough to cut through barbed wire. The dog. Diesel. My big, slobbery rescue mutt who'd been with me through divorce, bankruptcy, and the fire that nearly took the barn last year. My best friend. I leaned on my shovel. "You're gonna have to be a hell of a lot more specific," I said, voice calm but coiled like a rattler in the brush. "What about him?" She sniffed like something stank, probably the honest sweat of real work. "He's in violation of the HOA's Pet Policy Section 3.2. Aggressive breed. Over the size limit. And not registered with the community." I laughed, short, bitter. "Ma'am, this is a ranch. Diesel has more right to be here than you do." One of the clipboard guys stepped forward. "If he's not removed by Friday, we'll proceed with legal action." My jaw clenched. The sun was high, sweat trickling down my back, but suddenly I felt ice cold. I glanced down at Diesel lying under the porch, tongue lolling, eyes watching every move. He didn't understand what was happening. But I did. They were coming for him. And they didn't know who they were messing with. 3 months earlier. When I first bought the ranch outside Larkspur, Texas, it was the kind of place most folks drive by and say, needs too much work. The barn was leaning like it had had one too many beers. The fields were dry. The house hadn't seen paint since the early 2000s. But to me, it was perfect. I didn't want polished. I wanted peace. Diesel came into my life just days after I moved in. I'd found him half-starved and limping on the side of a dirt road near the feed store. He had one ear that flopped, a scar over his right eye, and the saddest damn look I'd ever seen on a living thing. I gave him a chicken thigh, and he never left. We rebuilt together, me, Diesel, and a whole lot of elbow grease. That ranch became home. Real home. Not the kind with throw pillows and wine nights, but the kind where hard work heals broken things. At first, the HOA didn't even notice me. The ranch had been grandfathered into the community back in the 80s, before the town got fancy and folks started building McMansions behind wrought iron gates. I wasn't part of their neighborhood. Not really. But that changed when I put up the fence. It was just a privacy fence. 7 feet high, solid wood. I built it myself to keep Diesel from chasing coyotes and to give us both a little breathing room. But apparently, it was unsightly and not in line with community aesthetics. I got my first letter the day after it went up. Then came the complaints. "Your dog barked too loud at night. Diesel was seen off-leash. Your property's grass isn't HOA compliant." It was never about the dog. It was about control. About people like Madeline not wanting folks like me, single, broke, not country club material, living near their picture-perfect suburbia. Still, I tried to play nice. I responded to letters. I trimmed the grass. I even put up a mailbox that matched the community's weird black and gold theme. But when they threatened Diesel, that was it. That morning at the gate was the moment they crossed the line. They didn't see it, but something inside me shifted. I wasn't just some ranch woman with a dirty dog anymore. I was about to become their worst legal nightmare. I watched them walk back to their car, heels clicking on the gravel, smug like they'd already won. Diesel let out a low growl, and I gave his head a pat. "Don't worry, boy," I whispered. "They came for the wrong dog." I reached into the barn, pulled out a dusty red folder, labeled HOA bylaws and property rights, and beneath it, a business card. One I'd been holding onto for a rainy day. Tyler McCabe, attorney at law. Property defense and civil litigation. It was storming now. And I was ready. By sundown, I'd cleared the dinner dishes, fed the horses, and sent off my first email to Tyler McCabe, the sharpest civil litigator in all of Caldwell County. I met him once during my divorce, and he had this way of reading legal documents like scripture, calm, focused, and deadly. I never thought I'd need him again. But here we were. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Miss Harlow," his voice came smooth and direct. "That's me," I said. "I read your email. And I gotta say, these HOA folks might have just picked a fight with the wrong cowgirl." The next morning, Tyler drove down in a black Silverado with more folders than I had tools in my shed. He was clean-cut, southern but not slow, and wore a dark denim jacket over a white Oxford like he'd just come from court. Diesel sniffed his boots, wagged his tail, then settled under the porch like he knew this man was part of the plan. We sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by spreadsheets, copies of HOA bylaws, and old property maps from the county recorder's office. Tyler pointed to one document in bold. "See this?" he said, tapping a highlighted clause. "This proves they have no authority over your land. Your ranch isn't technically inside the HOA jurisdiction, your parcel sits on land annexed 10 years before the HOA was formed. They're trying to enforce rules that don't apply to you." I blinked. So all those letters, all that drama, was bluff. Bluff and intimidation. And probably a touch of ego. I laughed, tight and angry. Madeline Crane's got enough ego to fuel a freight train. He leaned forward. "Here's the real kicker. If they try to evict the dog or fine you, we counter with a property rights violation and emotional distress suit. You're not just safe, you're in a position to take them down." And just like that, the air in the room shifted. I wasn't the underdog anymore. But Tyler had one warning. They're going to double down before they back off. People like this, they don't like being told no. Especially by someone they thought they could steamroll. He was right. By Thursday, I found a violation notice duct taped to my gate, not mailed, not official, just slapped there like some schoolyard threat. It said Diesel had attacked a neighbor's cat. A lie. Diesel hadn't left the porch in 2 days. I had security footage to prove it. Friday morning, I got a call from the local animal control office. They said a formal complaint had been filed, unregistered aggressive breed, dangerous to community pets. I felt my stomach drop. They want to take him, don't they? I asked. The voice on the line hesitated. We're investigating, ma'am. Just doing our due diligence. But I could hear it in her tone. They were coming. I looked over at Diesel. He was chewing on an old rope toy, tail wagging like none of this mattered. But it mattered to me. I had fought to build a life from the ashes, and he'd been there through it all. They weren't just attacking a dog. They were trying to break me. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up reviewing every document Tyler gave me, every email I'd sent, every piece of footage from my gate cam. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I planned. Because the next time they showed up, I wouldn't just be waiting, I'd be recording. Saturday morning came like thunder. I was feeding Diesel on the porch when I heard the familiar crunch of tires on gravel. This time it wasn't Madeline, it was a white van with Caldwell County Animal Services on the side. 2 officers stepped out, one young and nervous, the other older with a clipboard and a weary look. Miss Harlow, the older one asked. I stood tall. That's me. We received a complaint about a dangerous animal. We're here to inspect. You got a warrant? I asked. He paused. No ma'am, but... Then you're not stepping foot on my land. I pointed to a sign near the gate, private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. He looked annoyed but cautious. We were told the animal's aggressive. It's our duty to assess. My dog is a registered rescue. Up to date on all vaccines. Microchipped. And I have security footage proving he's been on this porch for 72 straight hours. You want to see it? The younger officer shifted uncomfortably. I've also got an attorney, I added, who's itching to file suit the moment anyone touches this dog. They glanced at each other, clearly unsure of what to do next. Then, like fate itself decided to add a little flair, my front gate opened again, and this time, it was Madeline. Blouse ironed, heels sharp, expression smug. I'm here to witness the removal, she announced, arms crossed. I walked right up to the gate, slow and steady. Diesel followed, tail wagging, looking more curious than fierce. I pulled out my phone, pressed record, and looked her dead in the eyes. You just trespassed on private property. I've got it all on video. Smile for the judge, Madeline. Her face blanched, just for a second, but it was enough. The officers stepped back. I think we've got what we need, the older one said quickly. They got in the van. Drove off. Madeline stayed frozen. Her mouth opened to speak, but I cut her off. This is your last warning. You come for me, my land, or my dog again, next time, it won't be a video. It'll be a lawsuit. She turned and walked away without another word. Back inside, I gave Diesel a treat and called Tyler. She trespassed, I told him. And I have it all on camera. He paused, then said, good. Because starting Monday, we file. I looked out the window, where Madeline's figure shrank into the distance like a shadow retreating from light. Let the real fight begin. Monday morning started different. Not with chores or coffee or Diesel's sloppy tongue waking me up. But with a courtroom-level war plan laid out on my kitchen table. Tyler arrived just after 8 a.m., briefcase in hand, calm as ever. He wore a blue tie this time, like he already knew we were going to win. He dropped a legal-sized folder in front of me, stamped and notarized. Cease and desist letter, he said. Filed this morning. Delivered to the HOA office by courier an hour ago. He handed me another paper. And this is the draft of the civil lawsuit we'll file if they so much as blink in your direction again. I read the headline. Harper Harlow v. The Larkspur Hills Homeowners Association, Madeline Crane, President, and John Does 1 to 5. The causes: harassment, trespassing, emotional distress, false reporting to animal control, and property interference. I stared at it for a long second. Then I smiled. They have no idea who they're dealing with, I whispered. By lunchtime, the HOA's inbox was flooded. Tyler copied every board member, the local council rep, the county clerk, and the Larkspur Weekly Gazette. Every one of them now had a paper trail showing how the HOA had not only overstepped their boundaries, but possibly broken the law doing it. By the end of the day, 3 different neighbors reached out privately. Michelle Daniels, from 2 lots over, texted me. Hey Harper. I got one of those bogus dog violation notices too. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Then came Gary Rosales, a retired Marine who'd been quiet since I moved in. He stopped by just before dusk, holding a slice of pecan pie wrapped in foil. I heard you're standing up to them, he said gruffly. 'Bout damn time somebody did. That woman's been on a power trip since her husband left her. I thanked him and offered him a chair on the porch. Diesel sniffed him, approved, and curled back up by the door. Gary looked out over the fields like he could see ghosts in the grass. People forget, he muttered. A home isn't just a house. It's freedom. They try to take that away, little by little. With rules. Fines. Threats. You stand your ground, Miss Harlow. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle deep. This wasn't just about Diesel anymore. This was about drawing a line in the dirt and daring them to cross it. That night, Madeline retaliated. Not with letters or complaints, but with something worse. Something quiet. Around midnight, I woke up to Diesel barking. Not playful barking, the deep, guttural kind that raised every hair on your neck. I grabbed the flashlight and shotgun from the wall, heart hammering in my chest. When I opened the front door, Diesel bolted out and made a hard left toward the barn. I followed, light sweeping across the darkness, and then I saw it. Spray paint. All across the barn door, in huge red letters. Dog killer. HOA trash. Move out. I stopped cold. My stomach twisted. Diesel growled, circling the area, but there was no one left to find. They'd already run off. I called Tyler. Even at that hour, he picked up on the second ring. They came to my property, I said, voice tight. Spray-painted threats. Called me a dog killer. Silence. Then, do you have pictures? Already took them. Then I'll see you at sunrise. At 6 a.m., Tyler filed a police report. Not a complaint. Not a warning. An official report, with photos, timestamps, and camera footage we pulled from the barn cam. Madeline had made a mistake. She'd moved from intimidation to criminal vandalism. And this time, the sheriff was listening. Deputy Collins showed up just after 8 o'clock, a lanky man with a badge and a clipboard who'd been friends with my late uncle. He took one look at the red paint and shook his head. "They're gonna regret this," he muttered. I watched him write, "possible felony charge," in his notes. It felt like air filling my lungs for the first time in days. We weren't just playing defense anymore. We were going on offense. Later that evening, just as the sun dipped behind the hills, I got a knock at the door. It wasn't Tyler. It wasn't a neighbor. It was a man in a gray suit, holding a letter. "Miss Harlow," he said. "You've been summoned." He handed me an envelope and walked away without another word. I opened it. Inside was a formal notice, HOA emergency meeting, scheduled complaint hearing re, Diesel, May 12, 6 p.m. They weren't backing down. They were doubling down. I looked at Diesel. "Looks like we've got a date with the devil." The day of the hearing, the sky hung low and gray, like it knew something was about to go down. I wore jeans, boots, and my late father's belt buckle, nothing flashy, but solid. Real. Diesel sat by my truck as I slid on my jacket. He couldn't come inside with me, but I promised him I wouldn't walk out without a win. "Stay sharp, boy," I said, scratching behind his ears. "We're about to end this." The meeting was held at the Larkspur Community Center, a pristine little box of beige with too much air conditioning and not enough warmth. I walked through those doors like I owned the place, flanked by Tyler McCabe on one side and Deputy Collins, yes, the sheriff's deputy, on the other. Madeline Crane was already seated at the head of the HOA board table, surrounded by 5 other board members dressed like they were about to audition for a toothpaste commercial. Her face twisted into that smile women wear when they think they're winning. "Miss Harlow," she said sweetly, "we're glad you could make it. Let's begin." Tyler didn't even sit down. He dropped a thick manila folder onto the table with a satisfying thud. "Let the record show," he began, "that my client has filed both a police report for criminal vandalism and a civil suit for harassment, defamation, and property interference. Unless this board intends to retract all false claims made against Miss Harlow and her registered emotional support dog, we'll proceed directly to court." Dead silence. Madeline blinked. The other board members looked at each other. Finally, one of them, Dan Richards, the treasurer, cleared his throat. "We weren't aware of a lawsuit," he mumbled. "You're aware now," Tyler said, calm and lethal. I stepped forward, voice steady. "I have over 12 months of letters, threats, and false complaints. I have video evidence proving Diesel never left the property. I have camera footage of the night someone vandalized my barn with threats against my life. And I have legal proof that this ranch isn't under HOA jurisdiction." I turned to Madeline. "You trespassed. You lied. And you tried to take my dog." She laughed, short, brittle. "You think some camera footage and a mutt gives you power here?" Tyler raised an eyebrow. "Actually, the footage plus the police report plus the dated violation notices, which are all signed by you, make you legally liable. And we're prepared to ask for damages, not just retraction." She stiffened, eyes darting to the rest of the board. "I suggest the board review the actual jurisdiction map and the relevant dates," Tyler added. "Because unless you want this entire HOA tied up in court for the next year, you'll shut this down, today." For a long beat, no one said a word. Then Dan spoke again. "I move to dismiss the complaint against Miss Harlow and remove any restrictions previously filed against her property." Another member nodded. "Seconded." "Motion carried," said a woman in glasses. "All in favor?" 5 hands went up. Madeline didn't raise hers. It didn't matter. Tyler smiled for the first time that day. "We'll consider this matter resolved, pending withdrawal of the complaint from Animal Control and a formal apology letter for the record." "Are you kidding me?" Madeline snapped. "She's gloating, in front of all of you." I turned to her, slow and calm. "You didn't just mess with a dog, Madeline. You messed with my family. You thought I'd roll over. You didn't know I come from people who plant their boots in the dirt and don't move for nobody." Madeline stood abruptly and stormed out. The heavy doors swung shut behind her like a gavel dropping. 2 weeks later, I received the apology letter, typed, signed by the entire board, and printed on official HOA letterhead. Diesel, now legally confirmed as my emotional support animal, had a new tag on his collar and an honorary certificate framed on the kitchen wall. And me? I stood out by the barn, paintbrush in hand, finishing the last coat over the spot where they'd scrawled hate. Now it read, "Don't mess with a dog owner on a ranch." I added a second line under it, just for good measure. "Especially this one." That evening, I sat on the porch with Diesel at my feet, the sun sinking low behind the hills. The breeze smelled like honeysuckle and peace. Tyler called. "You know, you could go after damages," he said. "Madeline's got money. You've got a case." I smiled, looking out at the horizon. "Nah. She lost something worse than money." "What's that?" "Control." I hung up and scratched Diesel's head. He looked up at me like he understood everything. "You hungry, boy?" He barked once, tail thumping. I got up and headed inside. We'd earned our peace. And we weren't going anywhere.